after the board is finished, then you take the cartoon or the design and you lay it on here on a piece of carbon paper and draw the design. And then you take a sharp tool and you scratch the design into the gesso. So I'll pass this around and you can see that if you look at it just right, you can see the design that's been scratched in here. And that's because pretty soon this is all going to be covered with paint and you'll lose your way. The lines scratched into the gesso will be your lifeline. Also, one of the very first things you do is paint clay on the edge of the board. And that represents the Old Testament. And it comes up and over about 1/4 of an inch on the edge. And then everything else in this one represents the New Testament. I'll tell you a little bit about putting gold on. And this is gold on here. It's 24 karat gold leaf. And there's an easy way to do gold, and then there's a hard way. And this is the hard way. The easy way is to use just a glue that's commercially prepared, kind of like rubber cement almost. So you can paint the glue on, and then you can put the gold on it, and it sticks. The hard way is to paint wherever you want gold, to paint it with Gilder's clay, which is a real fine red clay. And you mix it with rabbit skin glue, and then you puddle it on, and then it kind of spreads out. And then when it's dry, and you put on maybe 2 coats, then you start to sand it. You sand it, and then you sand it, and then you sand it, and then with finer and finer grits, until finally you use a tool which is, and I don't have mine, which is an agate stone, and you polish that red clay. You polish it. You look at it in the light, and of course there are going to be flaws. Always there are flaws. But you do your very best because you know you're working before God. And finally, when it's ready, as ready as you can make it, then you put the gold on. And the gold comes in little booklets like this. And they're very thin sheets. And the way that I was taught to do it, which is a lot easier than the other way, is to take a piece of wax paper and lay it down, and then it picks up the gold. And then you can cut it to fit. So here's the neat thing about working with gold leaf, is that with all of this area kind of reddish brown and polished as shiny as you can get it with your agate stone, then you breathe on it like a deep, moist breath. And then you take the gold and you lay it on there. And it sticks, hopefully. I've had times when it didn't stick. But that is the way of applying gold leaf. And that deep, moist breath is symbolic of the breath of the Holy Spirit. And it attaches a godly substance like gold onto a very human substance like clay. I'll pass this around. It's safe. Otherwise, if it weren't on that wax paper.
Yeah. How do you get off the wax paper? I missed that.
Oh, okay. Well, you breathe on the gold.
Oh.
You breathe on the clay, and the moisture reactivates the glue in the clay mixture, and then the gold will stick
Kick 'em.
momentarily. I mean, and I've had times when I've sanded all the gold off and started again.
How do you get it exactly right? You
Yeah.
pre-cut it?
Yes, and it won't stick. For example, you do it first, like this. This is now ready to put paint on and to color it, but the gold is always done first. And then you can paint right up to the
Okay.
edge,
Yeah.
and it makes it look pretty good.
Okay.
Also, there would be a red line that goes around the halo.
Oh,
Let's pass this.
Is that from the red clay or?
No, there's, you paint a red line.
Oh, you paint it?
Yes, you
Okay.
paint it on with using a compass.
Does that signify something in particular?
The red line signifies the beginning. So all of this effort so far leads up to the beginning. And then when you begin, after you've done your red line, then you can begin with color. By this time, you've also scratched in the design into the gesso. So then you start with your dark layers. And it's so interesting. Well, I'm going to show you how to make a paint. So, egg. And just think, back in the day, they needed something that was sticky. And you know what eggs are like on plates. On this icon, my friend, who lives up on Middle Fork Road, she and her husband had chickens. And so she provided the eggs. And there were only about maybe 3 eggs that were used.
So, get off of there, dear man.
Okay. Here's the way I do it. So I put the egg yolk in a paper towel. And then with a sharp tool, I poke it and squeeze out the yolk. And you don't want the membrane that is around the egg yolk. You just want the yolk.
What are you squeezing it in?
I'm squeezing it into a
No,
jar.
but what's the fabric?
Oh, a paper towel.
What's just a paper towel?
And
Any brand?
now, my teacher, I studied with a Russian iconographer named Vladislav Andreev. And he's still alive. I'm so glad to see. He was Orthodox and long-haired, very compassionate, but not a lot of emotion in his face. And so here is the egg, and then I should have put the egg in here, but I know how much it is. Then I put 3 times the water. And Vladislav used white wine.
What was the reason for the white wine?
Well, to drink wine. The next thing that I do is use white vinegar.
Wine vinegar?
White, but you could use wine vinegar too. And I'll just take some of it out, probably about a teaspoonful goes in there. And what that does is it keeps the egg from spoiling and smelling too fast. And
So
then,
there's a time element on how long you can keep this.
yes, but you know, with the vinegar, and this is a nice batch, and this would be enough really to paint an icon.
Wow.
And it's such a thrifty way to paint. So if you're interested in thrift, this is for you. Let me show you a little bit about the colors. And these are all natural pigments. So these colors come from the earth. And you can make any color you want. For example, one of my favorite ones is indigo, which is a natural, it's made from a plant. And so you take just a little bit, and I've had this set for 19 years. And I've painted a lot of icons with this. And every now and then I need to refill one of the colors, but not often. So using this eyedropper, you put a little bit of the egg emulsion in here, and then a little bit of color. And I usually have a scrubby brush that I use just to stir it. Now the indigo and some of the colors tend to float on the top. And when that happens, what I do is take a little bit of alcohol, like maybe rubbing alcohol, and just put it in there, and it breaks up all of the little clumps. And then to paint with it, this is a little board that has gesso on the top of it. But to paint with this, you just put a kind of a puddle there, and then just push the puddle out. And so Vladislav, with his Russian accent, said, "Poodle." You poodle and push, and you push the color. And what happens is that this gesso surface drinks up the liquid, and the color is left on the top. And the egg binds the color, so it doesn't just brush away. Without the egg, this would flake off, but the egg keeps it strong. And that will stay blue for centuries. The colors stay bright.
Does your etching hold back where you painted it? What?
It does in a way, but since you're working in silence and with a very small brush, this is one that I like to use. And then another one that I do details with, you can almost not see it.
That's great.
You're just careful. But if you go over, I mean, icons are full of mistakes. And there are always ways to hide the mistakes or let them be. Yeah. There was a friend of ours who was an Episcopal priest, and when I was taking classes out at Canuga, he just, painted sloppy, just sloppy. And that was the way he painted. And then after a while, he just kind of gave up on the design and just did his own thing, which he should not do. And then he painted one, he wrote the icon, it's called writing. He wrote the icon of the Virgin Mary. And by the time our week's class was over, I mean, it was, it was good enough, good for him. We were invited up to his house in West Virginia, and I saw the icon in his house by the door. And it was beautiful, just beautiful. Even though technically it was kind of blotchy. But there was just this beauty of holiness that came out. And especially after I'd been away from it for maybe a couple of months, and I saw it again for the first time. It's wonderful. That is pretty much how this icon was written. And the clay on the edge came from up by Snug Harbor Circle. There's a patch of beautiful clay, about the color of Patrick's sweater. And I went up there and I dug some and I slaked it down and took the fine powder and mixed it with egg. And so that made the Old Testament edge on it. Now, this metal work was another part of this icon. And I took a class up at Penland. Maybe some of you know Penland is like a grown-ups art camp up outside